Hello everyone, welcome to our second channel, More What the Rust. Today we're back working on the Flood250. If you haven't seen the original video on the channel What the Rust, this truck was flooded back in 2010. We've revived it and now I'm going to get it roadworthy. So we have a number of repairs to do to it today, and I think it's going to be super fun to follow along. The first task for today is the water pump. This water pump is unbelievably bad. Check this out. See all that play there? I'm really worried this thing's going to come flying through the radiator, which is what they do when they get worn out like this. So I'm not even going to start this up and move it. I'm going to fix it right under this shade tree here. This is 95 degrees today. And then we can think about starting up and moving it and doing the rest of the repairs. This truck is the 306, which is going to make life a little bit easier today. Look at the simplicity in getting this fan shroud off. It's basically these two little bolts here, and once they're off, the entire thing lifts out. It's only a tiny little top of a shroud, but I guess that's what Ford determined you needed if you didn't have AC back in 1984. So that's out of the way, and we can move on to getting the fan out of there. I'm expecting difficulties today for sure. This truck was covered in mud. I estimate the mud came up about almost 3 feet when the truck was flooded, and you can see it there partway up the radiator right there. And things like these tower clamps, looks like original to the truck. That's probably going to break, but no worries with that. We will take care of those in short order, but I do expect the fan bolts are going to be super tight. Here's the new pump. Very odd nose on this thing. I want to make absolutely sure this is the right pump before I do anything with it, because I was going to paint it, but I'm going to have to get this one out first because this just looks very strange to me. Maybe it's normal for a 306, but I don't think so, because I've changed 306 water pumps before and they didn't have this on it. Another bad sign, the instructions have dirt on them. So someone received this before and sent it back. I'm hoping that it's not a problem here. While I'm working on that water pump, this is that tan truck's cousin, also flooded, but flooded much more than the tan truck was. This thing had 2 gallons of water on it. The revival video is on the What the Rust channel, but I'm going to have second channel content on this thing too. This thing is running better and better, but I need to spend more time on it to see what I'm going to do with it. As I look at this, maybe taking the fan bolts off isn't smart. That nut there, that huge nut, that looks like that has to come off first to get the fan off, and then those fan bolts only hold the pulley in. I'm not sure about that yet, but I'm going to do some investigation. If that's the case, and I've just wasted some time. Yeah, sure enough, that's the case. Loosening those bolts only loosens the pulley. The fan isn't going to come off with that, so I've got to get a big wrench on this nut, and I'm going to have to put another bolt back in here so that I have something to hold. Well, this water pump is no walk in the park for sure. I've got one more bolt to do, and it's behind that big clump of mud, which is rock hard. I'm gonna have to hit that with a hammer to get it off. So that was not easy. This bolt down here is very hard to get at. You can see this bump here, and of course the outlet for the water pump is right here. It was very hard to get at, but it's out. It's very rusty inside. There was no water in it really, because it leaks so bad, but it's extremely rusty. A little concerning how rusty it actually is. And here's the pump itself. And you can see that the impeller has rusted right through. This absolutely had to be changed, and changed ASAP. This impeller was probably about to come apart. Now that this pump is off, there's a lot of cleanup to do around it because of the mud. But I'll tell you, if your friend ever says, hey, come over and help me with my 306 water pump, tell them you're waiting for your mother-in-law to come over or something like that, because this was no fun. And this is what I'm talking about. I'm gonna get all this dirt out of here. And on the radiator, I mean, this is just unbelievable. All this dirt that's caked on the radiator. I couldn't get at it before, but now I can. So I'm gonna be taking it all out of here, get some better airflow in this radiator. That bottom hose is gonna have to go. It's shot. I mean, I don't wanna say it's original, but it's very, very old. The clamps are as well. The clamps are all breaking when I take them off. But you gotta expect this. The truck was underwater. So no complaints here. Just if you ever get into a situation like this, that's what to expect. Whew, finally, I've got the fan clutch loose. I had to buy a special tool for it that consists of this wrench and this bar. You basically hold the bar with one hand and pull clockwise on the wrench with the other. And it was tight. I could have used Thor's help here. This thing was ridiculous. But I finally got it loose so I can get this all apart and get that water pump in. I'm ready for the new pump to go in, but interestingly enough, my brand new Amazon gasket scraper isn't working too well. The gasket, parts of it are on very hard, so I'm using a plain old laser blade and it's doing the job way better. So it's going to take a little longer than I had planned, but I'll get it. There are a few prep things that I do when I do a water pump. First is, for the old bolts, clean the threads. I just run these through a wire wheel. It cleans them up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use thread sealer. At least 2 of these bolts go into the water jacket. So you need to seal the threads or it could possibly leak by the threads. You think you'll have a gasket leak and you don't. So I'm going to put a little bit of this. It's just like a brushable liquid, sort of like Teflon tape. See that? Boy, this is not that good. It's getting old. But I like this better than Teflon tape. It's a little bit easier to work with. And then on this, I'm going to spread just the tiniest bit. Just use my finger and go around the tiniest bit of gasket sealer on it. Just because the surface down there, I mean, this is a very old truck, the surface down there is not the best. I am wrapping up with the tightening of the clutch. As you can see, it's got this huge wrench that fits over the nut there. And you just tighten it up until it's tight. Use the tension from the belts to hold it. It's hard to do while holding the phone, but you get the idea. It's in. Can't even really see it's there, but it's in, brand new. So that's done. Now we're moving on to the fuel pump, which is so short that when you hook gas up to it, it just streams out like there's nothing there. So this thing has got to go. This is a quick tip. once you open one of these RTV tubes, before long it hardens up. At least I find, no matter what you do. So the way to prevent that is put it in the refrigerator. Put it in a plastic bag and put it in the refrigerator. And it'll keep at least a year. I know I'm going on 2 years counting for a tube that I've got. This ought to be a whole lot easier than the water pump. Looks like bolt here, bolt on the other side, and this thing will pop out. First step was to remove the nuts on either side here. And that frees up this, which is the coil. And that whole thing lifts off. You also have to take this out. The whole thing lifts off. Now I just have to take those two mounting bolts off. That should do it. It's out. Two bolts essentially hold it in. You can see why this is such a critical piece to be sealed up well. That actuates the pump. You can see the wear mark there coming off what is likely the cam on this Ford, but I'm not 100% sure. And there's engine oil in here because this is exposed to the engine. So if this happened to leak without this weep hole, it would leak gas into the engine, which would be very bad. This hole, instead of letting gas into the engine, if the diaphragm inside the pump goes bad, it leaks out. And that's what was happening here. It was pouring out. So that's how I knew it was shot. Otherwise, it's a very simple device. Okay, cleaned up. Gasket's removed. It looks like there's some still there, but there isn't. The pump is ready to go in. I put a little grease on the end where the pump connects the is run off the cam. It might be overkill, but it's not going to hurt anything to do it. Gasket's in place, so I'm getting ready to drop this in. While I was getting ready to put the pump in, I found this old plug underneath it. Must have been dropped years ago. Obviously it was caught in the flood, which is why it was so rusted. But from what I can tell, at the time it was changed, it was still in decent shape. Pump is in. I didn't need further evidence that this pump was bad, but if you blow through here, the air will come right out of here. And that's a dead giveaway that this diaphragm has a hole in it. I also discovered this wire hanging here. I don't know what it's for. Looks like it hasn't been used in a while, but the insulation is completely gone. So I'm going to be wrapping that up before I go any further. Water pump and fuel pump are working great. All right, 2 things down, a bunch more to go. And I remembered that I hadn't checked the transmission pan yet for water. I'm not concerned that water get in from the flood. I'm concerned that the cooler in the radiator might have a hole in it. I don't have any evidence for that except a gut feel. So I'm going to drop the pan and make sure there's no water in there before I go further. Well, I'm glad I decided to pull this pan. Look at this mud. And there's a leak somewhere because it's wet under here. And I'm wondering if the pan's got a hole in it. I think it does, right there. I think the more I peel this mud back, the more it's going to start leaking. But maybe not. I mean, I don't think it's the rear seal. It's too dry back here. So it's either the front seal, which I don't think, or the pan. It is hot today. I thought we were done with the hot weather for a while. Not so. But we've got a nice shady spot here. I'm going to change the radiator on this from the mud-filled leaky stock unit to a larger V8 radiator that holds water. The goal is to put this one in. This hose has been leaking here and it looks like the radiator's shot, but it's actually that hose. This radiator is very, very different. Hose is on the wrong side, etc. But I think I can make it work. This is from a 351M Ford truck. That one over there. So hopefully, being both Fords, I can make this work. I'm really liking my little GOOLOO tire inflator, but this is a big tire. Let's see how it does with a 215/85/16 at 34 pounds. It worked. I really like this little thing. It's so tiny, it almost fits in your hand. The battery wasn't full and it still got halfway. That is pretty neat. With the fuel pump and water pump on, I've been able to get this thing out of the tree line and bring it down into the garage. The radiator is still leaking. The replacement radiator that I took out of the blue truck will not fit. It's actually 100% opposite. So I'll have to do something different there. But I want to get the brakes working better. The rear brakes, there are none. And you can imagine why. For a truck that has been sitting this long and was flooded, there's nothing in there. So I have a bunch of spare master cylinders, some of them from the Tui's warehouse, and look what I found. In an unmarked box that I picked up from the warehouse, a new master cylinder, and it looks like exactly the right one. I mean, exactly. That would be some incredible luck given the box wasn't marked and I just grabbed it. So I'm gonna try that, and so it's going in next. I'm a bit surprised I had brakes at all. See that piston? It's stuck probably 3/4 of an inch or more in the bore. Oh, it's amazing I got any brakes at all with the piston travel I had and only one cylinder full. The new master is exactly the same except for the depth of the hole. The depth is about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch difference, but I can adjust that here. And as you can see, that little ball is sticking out. I just need to crank that back in, and then I'll have the right adjustment. The new master cylinder is in, connected. I've gravity bled this wheel. The passenger front, the hose might be plugged because nothing's coming through, but the bigger issue is a line blew to the rear where they always go. Every single Ford pickup I've owned has had the line blow right about here. The line comes down the frame, dips a little bit, and then comes back up, and it always rusts there. Here's where it blew. It's right here, right there. And there's a union there, and the other one's up at the junction, the combo valve. But this gas tank's in the way, so this is going to have to come out. Give you an idea of the mud on this truck. I know I keep showing you this, but this came off the gas tank. And this one also is on the gas tank. And it doesn't come off easy. But it's just 2 straps to get this tank off, so I'm going to get to it. No sense delaying at this point. All right, I've got it out. There's where it's bad. Every time it happens. The brake line sits like this in the frame, and that part is down low, and it rusts. So you can't splice line like this with compression fittings, so I'm just going to build a whole new line, just get rid of this thing altogether. I'm going to use the fittings on the end because it's a special fitting there, but I'm going to make it out of this. This is really good stuff, and it bends a lot easier than steel line. So I'll make this up and throw it in. Okay, viewers, let's play a game. Find that brake bleeder. This is the back of the brake drum. This is like concrete here. And I have to get it out because I have to find the brake bleeder, which is somewhere in here. Here's the line, so we know the brake bleeder is nearby. It adds to the fun of this job. After prospecting for 5 minutes, I found it. It's right there. Now, is it gonna come out? Is that gonna loosen up? I don't know. It's yet another torture test for Creole. We're gonna try it on both sides and see if this stuff can get these loose. Boy, I don't know. It's very bad, as you can imagine. But with the oil on it, you can see that in fact is a bleeder. So I'm gonna let that sit for a minute and give it a try. If I didn't see it from my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. It came out no problem. Of course, it's plugged at the top, but I'm willing to bet that this bleeder is salvageable. It looks very, very nice inside. I would guess that this brake cylinder wasn't that old when the truck was flooded. So I'm going to free up this bleeder and go on to the driver's side. When you take on a truck like this one that has been through what this truck has been through, oftentimes you find stuff broken when you weren't looking. This truck has a transmission leak, and I've not been able to find it. It's not the front seal, not the rear seal, not the pan gasket. So I noticed this when I was under here doing the brake lines. Look at that. That is a hole in the pan, probably from the flood. It's a real small hole in the pan, and it just keeps on dripping out. I don't see any other leaks under here. But given a few days, this will drip out quite a bit. So there's an easy temporary fix. It's an old off-roader's trick, and that is to put soap over the hole. And I'm going to try that right now and see if this leak stops. We'll be able to tell quickly. I think I got it. Just took what's left of a bar of soap and smeared it on there, as you can see, and it stopped leaking. This will actually last for a very long time, and especially if the truck isn't used, it sits around a lot. This pan needs to come off and get replaced, which I can't do tonight, but this will buy me some time so it doesn't run out of fluid overnight. But as you can see, it's holding up really well. I mean, there is nothing coming out of there now. So if you're ever in a similar situation, use some soap. Something is up with how this truck turns over. It acts like the timing is way advanced, barely starting, barely spinning. But as far as I know, the timing is not advanced. So I'm wondering if my battery is just super low. It's the battery out of my blue Ford that's been sitting now for like 3 months without being run. So maybe it's that, but I've got a possible solution. I've got this tiny little jump box here. There's my hand, called the GOOLOO Super Safe Car Jump Starter. I'm gonna try it. Sometimes these little jump boxes are great, sometimes not. It's charged by USB. You can also charge your car or use both as supply lines. So I'm gonna hook this back up. And my hope is that it starts a whole lot easier than it was. These cables seem to be the clamps seem to be of decent quality. The cables are quite thin. But let's see how it does. So it's hooked up turned on and I hit the boost button. Let's see if this turns over better. So let's do this. Let's cut the gas off so it doesn't start so quick. I ran it out of gas on the carburetor. Let's see how fast it turns. Hooked up, not hooked up. It's not hooked up right now. That's pretty slow. Not so great. Now let's hook this up and turn it on. Let's see if it made a difference. Yeah, it made a huge difference. It nearly fired even with the carburetor bowls being empty. Let's see what happens if I turn it over for like 20 seconds straight. If in fact the battery starts to draw down inside the jump box. There's no gas in the carb, so it shouldn't start. Let's see, the power has noticeably dropped off. So let's see what the battery's doing in this thing. Well, it doesn't look like it is, but its power has clearly dropped off. What this is good for is if you leave your headlights on and your battery's dead, needs a quick kick, that's what this is good for. And it's small enough to keep in your trunk for exactly those situations. So to me, this little box is worth it. It's not too expensive. The product link is in the description, but it works pretty well. So why do I care about this? My kit is getting out of control. It's taking up the whole bed of a 6-foot truck. And if I can downsize things, it makes it better and better. And this thing's real small and it's gonna do what I need it to do. So we've got the new rear line in place. All the bleeders are loosened up. Now it's time to see if the brakes will actually bleed. I'm skeptical. I think we may have a few frozen calipers, a frozen caliper over here, some frozen lines, but it's got brakes, so something is working. So we're gonna start in an unorthodox way. We're gonna start with the wheel that works. You're supposed to start over there and come this way, but we're gonna start with the wheel that works and see if we can get any pressure to come out of it. Okay, go ahead. No need to pump anymore. Okay, so all I'm going to have you do is pump it up, and then I'll open up fluid.
Door's open. Oh no, I'm going to have to shut the door. Well, at least that works. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Pull it down.
Yep.
Let up.
Yep.
Pump it. Pull it
Hold it
down.
down.
Let up.
Yeah.
Pump it. Pull it down. Shut it off.
Turn it off. I didn't feel any change.
You didn't?
No, and why does it make that sound? That shush sound.
Could be.
Oh, now it's not making it.
Yeah, it could be that the vacuum booster's just evacuated, or maybe it's got a hole in it, but I got a lot of air out.
You did?
Yeah,
It might feel a little bit better now once the swishing stopped.
Yeah, because the engine's not running. It's not making vacuum.
Oh, every time I push on it, it goes swish, swish.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like a vacuum going.
It could be a leaky power brake unit. Yeah. Okay, let's try the other side front. Yeah, so what I expected to happen happened in that nothing came out of this side. So we've got an obstruction somewhere, probably in this hose on this side. Not too unexpected really, but I know the master cylinder's working because we're getting fluid on that side, at least the front portion of the master. So let's move on to the back and see if we can get anything out of there. Okay, we're gonna try the rears without the engine running because it's so hard to hear. And if nothing comes out, we'll have to start it. So go ahead, babe, pump it up. Hold it down. And as you can see, there's nothing there. It's dry as dust. So I think probably that hose right there is plugged. But just for kicks, we're going to try it with the engine running. Start it up, pump it up. Nothing. So we've got a restriction here, no surprise. So we're going to try, as a last effort, the driver's side rear. I just cracked it open and a little bit of fluid came out. I don't know how, but it did. So we're going to try to bleed it and see what happens. Okay, go ahead. Hold it down. Yeah, there's fluid coming out of here. Isn't that interesting? Okay, let up. Try this once more. Pump. I can feel the brake drum moving. Hold it down. Not much coming out though, not like it should be. Let up. How does it feel? Any better? No.
Do you hear that though?
Yeah, I do hear that. Yeah, that could very well be the brake booster leaking. Okay, leave it running. I'm going to try it out.
Good. Can you park it back over there?
I'm still going to put it here. It's got left side brakes. So here's where we're at. We've got brakes on the left side. So clearly we're going to need at least a hose for the right front caliper. I'm going to get a hose for the back because there's not a lot of pressure on the back. I'm going to pull the wheels off, see if we need calipers, brake cylinders, that type of thing. And the last thing I need to do is find out why it's running like it is. Coming up this hill, that truck was to the floor. And what was it doing? Maybe 6 miles an hour. So still some work to do on that old thing, but it's a neat truck. It really is a neat old truck. You'll catch more in a future episode. Thank you so much for watching. This is a truck that I'm planning on using once I get it running well. So it's something that is not just going to sit in the field once I'm done. Thank you so much. Have a great day.